Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Marketers have been working on personalization since the dawn of the internet, and actually even earlier than that. Now with AI, you can deliver ads made for each of your customers. Publicis Sapient is committed to faster, better personalization and is proud to introduce Slingshot and Bodhi AI. Now, these AI platforms are designed to customize every key touch point and reduce creative timelines from weeks to days. With Publicis Sapient, marketing isn't just fast, it's personal. Smarter marketing, happier teams, wow-worthy customer moments. Upgrade your marketing at publicissapient.com. Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them to Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com. I'm here today with my guests, Adam Brotman and Andy Sack. Today's topic, it's a bird, it's a plane. Holy shit, it's AI, part one. Now, Adam was the Chief Digital Officer of Starbucks, as well as the EVP of Global Retail Operations. He also served as the President and Chief Experience Officer and co-CEO, that's so many titles, at J.Crew. Andy is a managing partner at Keene Capital and the Innovation Arts Group and has had many experiences in the digital and financial world. Together, they have founded Forum3, a company focused on the intersection of artificial intelligence and digital transformation. But more importantly, they wrote a book called AI First. And full disclosure, I met them after their thought-provoking, almost mind-blowing session at the Marketing AI convention this past summer when they talked about what they learned from this book. Welcome, Andy and Adam.
Good to be here.
Great to have you.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here too.
This will be really fun. So let's start with the book. I know you all had an original idea, and the first title was Our AI Journey. Tell us, and then when you started doing the interviews, you decided it should be more along the lines of something like, holy shit. Take us through that metamorphosis so our listeners can understand what you learned about AI and how your thinking evolved, why you were creating this whole book concept.
I'll let Andy actually answer that because he loves the title, The Holy Shit Moment. And so since you've mentioned it a couple of times, Andy's probably excited to jump in. So Andy, why don't you talk about the evolution of the book and then I'll jump on top.
Adam, it's a testament that we're good partners because I was like, oh, I'll take that one. So we got approached about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago by Harvard Press to author a book on AI, generative AI. And so we started out with that and we were like, okay, at first we were debating whether we should do it. We decided to do it. And we were like, okay, the book's going to be called Our AI Journey. And almost exactly a year ago, November of last year, we did our first interview. And Our AI Journey was basically, Adam is the Chief Digital Officer of Starbucks. Mike, I think you left out a relatively important part to my background, which is I spent 7 years working with Satya Nadella at Microsoft, working on digital transformation. And so the two of us, sort of middle-aged career technologists, set out on a new learning journey of like, oh, this is sort of the new third platform, where platform one was called the introduction of the web. Platform two is social media, cloud, and really mobile, web 2.
Yeah.
And now we're in this new thing, and it's AI. So
and it will move just like all those other platforms, right?
Yeah, well, at least the experience of those prior platforms is relevant to this one. And so we went and had our first interview with Sam Altman, November of last year. And I think we're going to talk about that meeting. I don't want to get into that, but we met with Sam Altman. After Sam, we met with a bunch of other thought leaders in AI, Reid Hoffman, Bill Gates, Mustafa Suleyman, and we were talking to these thought
This
leaders.
is a pretty good list.
And in each case, they would talk about, yeah, this AI thing, it's huge. It's as big as the internet. And they were basically talking to us about their eureka in what their eureka moment, my translation, their holy shit moment with AI.
Yeah.
And so that culminated basically in March when Adam and I were giving a keynote speech at Imagine AI in Las Vegas, and I basically described the holy shit moment of AI for these thought leaders. And if it's a holy shit moment for the thought leaders, it really is a holy shit moment for society, for business, and for the individual. I don't think there's a lot of talk about it. There's some concern about layoffs, but I don't think we, myself included, even though I've interviewed these people, really understand just how much of a change is upon us. And it's really coming in the next 12 to 24 months. And so I advocated with Harvard Press. I really wanted to call the book The Holy Shit Moment. And ultimately, the book is called AI First.
The holy shit moment is holy shit moment is just more marketable. I'm just saying there's so many things you could do with holy shit moment. I want to go.
Mike, too bad you're not at Harvard Press.
I know. I'm sure they're going to call me after they listen to this show. But let's talk about some of the holy shit moments here, and you guys can swap off because the list of people you talk to it's like the who's who of AI. And while you're in here, weave in this whole thing about first you thought this was going to be, just like the next generation of stuff, but then you realize it's actually something bigger. So tell us about kind of, some of these interviews and the most impactful stories that created holy shit in your head.
This week's episode is brought to you by Publicis Sapient. Visit them at www.publicissapient.com. At Publicis Sapient, we're not just talking about AI. We're delivering real results. Today. With Sapient AI, we speed up software development and save clients thousands of hours. We revolutionize how travelers discover their perfect getaway. And even turn a simple fridge scan into a personalized meal plan. Making AI work for you? It's what we do. Now back to our discussion with Adam Brotman and Andy Sack.
So why don't let me talk a little bit about that Sam Altman meeting. I think, Andy, you should talk about the Bill Gates discussion.
Right.
And keeping in mind that most of the listeners of this show are marketers, or a lot of them are, we actually came at that meeting and we came at this learning journey with an overall digital transformation mindset, but with an emphasis on marketing. We came at it like, I wonder what this means for marketers. Most of our clients, a lot of the people we deal with are marketers. We're sort of former marketers in some respects. So when we came to that meeting, we sat down with Sam, and we documented this in the book, but we sat down with Sam and we were just trying to understand, tell us more about where this technology is going, where you're driving this technology and what it means for marketers. And we honestly expected it to go where we would learn a bunch about the technology and, the normal things you'd think about when you go into something like this. And instead, he wanted to talk about this concept called AGI, which stands for Artificial General Intelligence. And what that means is if you've achieved AGI, and there's lots of different definitions of it, but for everyone that's listening, just think about like that super intelligence, almost science fiction level of AI. That's really what AGI means on some level, where the AI is smarter than almost every expert on every function. Okay. And that took us, that wasn't even the holy shit moment. I'll explain what it was for us. But that took us by surprise. We were like,
oh, he describes a Star Trekian world.
Yeah. We were like, wait, why are you talking about this? We're just trying to ask you, where this is going and what it means for marketers. And he wanted to focus on this concept of artificial general intelligence that we weren't really focused on at the time. And the reason I think it's important to, why am I bringing this up, is that because, like Andy just said, most people that we talk to now, probably most listeners of the show, they're not fully understanding how powerful and how fast this technology is moving. And I'm saying that from, I'm not being patronizing. Like, that's where Andy and I were in our journey. Like, we weren't understanding that. And when he said, no, we're focused on AGI, and we were like, well, what does that mean for a marketer? Because that's where our head was and still is in a lot of ways. Like, what does that mean? And he was like, oh, 95% of everything that a marketer does and their agencies do and their individual contributors do, the AI will be able to do. You'll just spin up agents and it'll be capable of spinning up synthetic audiences. And like, you just imagine what an agency does, what marketers do, it will be able to do it. It'll be able to do it effectively as well as the best marketers, at least to a 95% extent, and for free and pretty much instantly. And okay, so that was pretty shocking. We're like, oh my God, okay, that's not what we expected to hear. And the moment when we said, when is this coming? And he said, 5 years, give or take. And by the way, at the time we published this chapter, because we're publishing our chapters serially, that quote and that timeline and everything was kind of a newsworthy thing, sort of. Now, if you ask, now the idea of AGI coming along within the next 4 or 5 years is actually not even that controversial. Like, it's a lot of people think it's going to be the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 10 on the outside. Right. And so we left that meeting, and I'll turn it over to Andy to talk about the Bill Gates discussion, but we left that meeting, that was our holy shit moment. Like,
yeah, it's like a meteor striking all the ad agencies and marketers it's an extinction event for a bunch of marketers.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we'll talk about that, because Andy and I have a thought that it's more complicated than that, and maybe slightly more optimistic than that, although we're realists. But to your point, it was, Mike, we left that, we pretty much ended the meeting at that point, because we were both kind of speechless, because we didn't understand both how powerful and how fast this technology was moving, and that was the mission of this organization and of these major AI labs. And so we left and we were stunned. We went across the street and we sat at this park in San Francisco and just kind of stared off into the city and at the Golden Gate Bridge, and just kind of were like pondering, like, if it's even close to 5 years from now, we need to rearrange our mission as a company and kind of what we're doing with our life to get that message across to as many marketers and as many CEOs as possible.
And I think we said at Macon is we went in there thinking that AI was going to automate and personalize emails at speed. And we went out thinking it's going to change society as we know it.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's hear the Bill Gates story.
Yeah, so that was the story of Sam Altman was November a year ago. And so basically 2 months later, we were fortunate enough to sit down with Bill Gates and have an interview with him. And the story, I mean, the interview was fascinating, spending an hour just, teeing up Bill and letting him expound, because he has the vantage point of really the entire birth of the PC industry, computer on every desktop. And he basically told us the story of, the first time he met Sam Altman and talked about OpenAI's work and Chat GPT, he likened it to when in the late 70s, he went to San Francisco and saw the Alto computer. And what he saw there was like what he talked about, that interaction with the Alto computer basically laid the foundation for really the next decade of Microsoft's strategy and ethic. And he was so blown away by the Alta computer at Xerox PARC that it was really when he saw that, it was his first technological holy shit moment, and it inspired him and really as I said, laid out the groundwork for that strategy and Microsoft's 10 to 15 year plan to get a PC on every desktop.
Yeah.
And he compared ChatGPT when he sat down with it. He was like, at first he said, I think as when I interacted with ChatGPT, and he was talking at that point 3.5, it
Yeah.
was it was as significant as that. And then he pondered for a moment and he was like, it might even be more significant than that. And for Bill to say that and to just have, and his comment was like, the last 20 to 30 years have been about getting really the infrastructure, a PC on every desktop, internet connectivity, like forming the network, like what took 30 plus years, so 40 years to get to the state that we're at now. All of that infrastructure really had to be in place in order for ChatGPT to be born. And
Yeah, yeah.
now,
Andy, by the way, just to interrupt for 1 second, because all the content, to your point, like
yeah,
you have
Right.
to have the computerization, the internet, social media, all those things you mentioned, and that produces all these billions of pages or hundreds of billions of pages on the web for these models to train on. So
Right.
it's fascinating, right?
yeah.
Sorry,
So he
I
just
didn't mean to
he
interrupt you, but
described
your
he
point's a really
no,
good
no,
one.
you're totally right. He described seeing ChatGPT as, you know as significant as that moment of seeing the auto computer. And then he went on further to say that, yeah, he was like, he still thought it was 5 to 10 years out. He's like, yeah, Sam, what you've got is, like, that's cool. Like, call me when when ChatGPT can solve the AP biology exam.
Yeah.
And in his mind, he was like, oh, like he was still poo-pooing it and thought that Sam was a good salesman and was out, sort of evangelizing. And he got a call less than 6 months later, and they were like, "We'd like to set up that dinner to show you. We have some things to show you." And they basically, ChatGPT 4, before it had been released, basically passed the AP biology exam, and got all but one perfect answers, including an essay writing thing. And so it got a 5 on the AP biology exam. And Bill described that as his holy shit moment. And we came out of that interview going, wow, like this is even big. Like if Bill's saying that, this is even bigger than we expected. And so it's just a continued part of of the book being called The Holy Shit Moment, which is really called AI First.
I still like holy shit. And Chat GPT, I guess it was 3.5 then, got to exempt itself from biology 101 in college since it passed
Yes.
the AP thing. So I want to go more into the holy shit moment. And what does holy shit actually mean to you in terms of, you start out by thinking it's going to change marketing, and then you realize, oh my God, it's going to change all of marketing and agencies, and maybe it's going to change the world. Describe what it's going to change, and we can debate that Harvard didn't call it holy shit, but describe what holy shit really looks like in your mind as this thing rolls out over the next 5 years.
Well, I mean, first of all, we haven't even seen this is a lot of the rest of the, we went from in the chapters of the book, we went from talking to Sam Altman. The second interview we had was with Reid Hoffman. Then we talked to Bill Gates and so on. Then Mustafa Suleyman and so on. And one of the key arcs of the book of why it was such a holy shit moment, what does it mean, is we've only seen the tip of the iceberg so far. And it's already so crazy, but like we haven't seen full agents yet, like where the AI you can spin up agents to effectively do work for you and go accomplish goals. And it's not just a chat, it's actually like spinning up a worker, a knowledge worker.
Like,
And
what would be an example of an agent you could spin up?
Yeah, imagine a real example of an agent you could spin up is, I want you to go, you talk into the AI saying, I want you to go email, call, or text 1,000 of our customers, and I want you to interview them live, like you would in a focus group. And here's the criteria I'm looking for, and I want you to, you can be honest that you're an AI, but I want you to basically interview a bunch of customers and then talk to them and then synthesize your interviews with them and then come back to me, deliver me a report and recommendations. Like that's nothing like what you use ChatGPT for now. Like another example is you could say, I want to book a trip with my family to Paris. I want you to research it, and I want you to book it. And I want you to actually like book it for me. Like those are examples of what an agent does. Right now, when you interact with an AI, it's a non-agentic conversation, because it's not like you're just giving the AI a goal to go off and do
Right.
autonomous goals on its own. It's actually just you're prompting or chatting and it's reacting, right? And you're learning and it's incredible and it can do, and that's a lot of what knowledge work is, which is like get me answers, do research, like help me get to an insight. That's a lot of what knowledge work is. That's what AI is good for now. And it can create images, it can create videos, it can create code, but that's not agentic necessarily. Agentic is it's on its own and it's actually doing much more of when you're giving it a goal and it's going off and doing things and coming back. And that's going to be the next wave of AI. Is that's happening probably next year. By the way, as the models are getting 10 times better effectively and staying and maybe even less expensive, because the chips are getting more powerful. The training runs are getting more expensive and better. And so there's all of that's happening in terms of like, we're just about to enter into a new era where you've got like full-blown chain of thought reasoning, PhD level intelligence combined with agents. And all of a sudden it's not a fantasy to say, oh wow, I can actually give the AI work that I would normally give to my employees or to an agency. So that we haven't really gotten there yet. It's right now it's good at like supplementing, augmenting, adding productivity. It's like it's really important to use now, but it's going to get even more impactful over the next 12, as Andy said, over the next 12 to 24 months. You're about to see it take a step change, we think, of being even more, I'll call it, powerful and frankly more disruptive. And I want to just say one thing before we get too long. You know, Andy and I want to make sure everyone listening to this, we have the same fears and concerns and questions around AI that you probably all do. Like we're not coming at this in some sort of, you know, excited sense of like, oh, this is so great no matter what. It's just we're more like realizing this is happening. So we want to do everything we can to give every marketer, every CEO, and every organization an opportunity to like get ahead of it. And so we can all figure this out together.
I love this word agentic. And I wanted, this is a little long question, so bear with me. If I think of the digital revolution and then, 2.0 and mobile and everything else, those all were predicated on everybody finally using them and the infrastructure getting in place to deliver them. When I think about the way you just described AI, the technology and the capability is just rolling along at speed, regardless of who can use it. And the adaptation of the AI is not in the way of the development of the AI. So this makes it a completely different kind of thing. Am I looking at that the right way or not?
Mike, you are. I mean, you simplified it, but you are thinking about it. I'm still before I engage fully with this question, I'm still thinking about your examples and Adam's answer. I wanted to add another use
Okay.
case because I think use cases are illustrative to the holy shit moment. And Adam talked about 2 business use cases, but I happened to watch an Eric Schmidt video recently in which he talked about what's going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months, which is basically increased memory in the context window, agents, and text to action. And the example that he used and it's really, he talks about that it's all 3 of those things coming together in approximately the same time, and the unification of those tech advances in AI that enable really an exponential acceleration. We're already going really fast,
Right.
but it's going even faster. And the example he uses is like, there's a lot of talk in the United States about whether TikTok should, whether it's a phenomenal app. People love it. It's got tremendous consumer engagement. If you've ever spent any time, it's a phenomenal application that
Right.
happens to have some association with China. And And so he was saying that it may be banned. And he's like, in the event that it is banned, I'm not saying that I recommend this, but you could actually instruct AI to go build the feature set to mimic TikTok and take in as much of the content as you can. And if it doesn't go viral within 3 months, actually have it iterate until it does go viral. And so basically you could set the AI out on a mission to go replicate TikTok. And he's been telling the entire class to go do that. It's like, I'm not recommending that you go do that, but that's what I would tell all of you to go do. And it was a speech at Stanford. The listeners can go. I recommend going to listen to it because it's really, he says it in a much more articulate fashion. But if you take that idea of what he's saying, it's basically any it's a combination of the agent. It starts to go, it can start to build and create what we used to associate with software that would require hundreds of developers and a lot of time and a lot of capital to go build, that you could basically go instruct it to do that for a couple of $1,000.
That is a great use case, and thanks for putting that out there. And it does feed my, I want to go back to that question I put on the table, which the technology is going as fast as it can, regardless of the users or anything else, which is totally different than any of the other technologies that have come on. How do you even wrap your mind around that if you're out there in business and or government or society, and think about it?
So
I mean,
Adam, can I take this one?
Yeah, take it.
Yeah. We have this, when we talk about this topic internally, we really talk about the pandemic and COVID, that,
Right.
in 2019, like really the only human experience that we have tangibly of exponential change and growth was COVID. And that in 2019, if you had said like, oh, all business meetings are going to be held over Zoom, and everybody's going to be working from home, and 97% of people will do that, all of us would have said, no way. And then sure enough, come April or May, 120 days in, basically consumer behavior, business behavior, and government behavior changed radically. Like, we forget it was the boom of order from home, and my wife was out there with antiseptic things, washing everything out and wiping down cans. Like, behavior changed massively, and I think AI is kind of like that.
Yeah, I would add that to your point, Mike, it is really hard to wrap your head around it, because we have experienced, Andy and I, and everyone listening has experienced technology evolution in a somewhat linear fashion. I mean, you could call it exponential, but it's somewhat linear. It feels like
you can chart it out.
Yeah, like you're saying, there was like Moore's law and Metcalfe's law, and and then the eras of Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3, they just cut into AI, like they sort of went a certain way. I think what we're entering into, and what we're probably entering into, is to Andy's point, going to a place that's not based on the prior pattern, and is not linear. So, for example, Andy's TikTok point that he mentioned, which is a great one, like as a marketer, you're used to having to like we were just talking about, like having to like figure out what marketing software solutions are out there, what point solutions, or what in the age of Gen AI you would call them.
You can put math on all this stuff.
Well, you call it deterministic software, and so deterministic software, meaning it just works the way it was coded, and if it doesn't, there's a bug, and that's what it does. But it doesn't do more than that. And you as a marketer aren't going to write code and build your own software. You're going to expect your technology department to help you find enterprise software solutions, point solutions that work to meet your needs, and you got to be able to support them, and you got to like integrate them and do all these things. We are probably going to start to get to an era where, as a marketer, you're going to just think up what you want, and you're going to start to collaborate with AI, your AI system, a Chat GPT or a Claude or whatever, or Gemini, and say, I'm trying to solve this problem as a marketer. I would like software to help me do it. This is the software I'm imagining.
Oh,
Can you help me build it? And it will build it, right? And that's kind of a roll your own enterprise software solution, which is unfathomable. That's not linear, right? That's
not even
unfathomable.
exponential. It's totally like just.
Yeah, yeah, it's unfathomable, right? Like, so when we were talking to Bill Gates, an interesting side note, but it kind of relates to this, is Bill Gates, we were talking about one of the free features that's just part of the suite of features of OpenAI's ChatGPT, which is this advanced voice mode where it can translate in real time, interruptible, and completely with reasoning and understanding across, I want to say, like 150 plus languages, if
Yeah.
not more. And it's so a real-time universal human-like advanced voice translating feature. Bill was saying 10 years ago, 7 years ago, that would have been a multi-billion-dollar company. Like just doing that feature. And that feature is just a free feature of OpenAI and coming soon to all the other platforms. And so you're like, those are sort of like paradigm shifts around how to think about the software. So as a marketer, that's what should be on your mind, is like, it's I not to cut to like, is this going to take my job or what does this mean? But you said, how do you wrap your head around it? I
Right.
actually think as a marketer, you might want to start. I mean, I would like start thinking like, I'll have to compartmentalize that for a minute. Right now, I should be trying to get educated and literate on what is going on with this thing. Where is it going? What's my company doing to sort of embrace this so that I can start experimenting with the things that are going to make my job easier? And as opposed to getting caught up in the, is this going to take my job? Because we don't have an answer for that right now.
Yeah.
Like it might be that the nature of the job of marketing changes to being more managing AI systems or something like that, or designing AI systems to accomplish the marketing goals, as opposed to doing the straight up marketing output that you're used to doing. Like these are the things that Andy and I are really trying to encourage companies to think about and start getting literate and start experimenting with it right now.
So talk about, so I'm somewhere between I can use this to write legal briefs and personalize emails versus this is going to obliterate humanity. I should be moving as fast as I can in the execution, but thinking bigger, right? Good. And one of the things you said in your talk or in our pre-show is the past is not going to be a good predictor for AI. And you also talked about being on the other side or the far side of the trough. Tell us what that means as you look at AI. And I think you've done a little bit of that already you can't think about this as technology burdened by any adoption or infrastructure. You have to think about it of technology as technology unleashed. Add any color to that you want, and then tell me about the trough.
Adam, you want that one?
Sure. So on the trough point, my first thought is we interviewed probably the leading example of a company that has completely adopted an AI first mindset and practice, which is Moderna, the vaccine biotech company.
Yeah.
And they went out, they've always wanted to be AI first, even before ChatGPT was a thing. Like that was a part of their reason for being, was to use technology and AI to help solve some of these biotech questions so they could help cure diseases and prevent diseases. That's their mission. And they've in a weird way, they've been AI first from the beginning. They went out and sought out the leading AI digital transformation expert in the world. And it's not Andy and I. We aspire to be that, but and it was this guy named Bryce Chalomel who was working at Google,
Yeah.
who had come from BCG. He lived in France. He was a professor. He wrote books, and then he ultimately led the Google Cloud's AI transformation group. And him and his team were plucked out of Google to go work at Moderna to lead an AI transformation. And they got a head start on this. They got educated. They ran hackathons. They developed generative AI champions team. They did all these practices to get 3,000 of their 5,000 employees using AI every single day, and to make it not just a random active AI kind of thing, but actually like a fully blown scaled AI first organization where they were harnessing AI. And what he said to us was, he said, all these people are like saying that is there too much hype about AI, and is it, and he said to Andy and I, he goes, we're over on the other side of the trough of disillusionment of the hype cycle, saying, hey everybody, we're over here and it's real. And they claim on their they published a thing online, a case study, if you will, or customer story online that says they feel like they can do 5 times the amount of product marketing and product development that they could have done before they became AI first, and they're probably doing the work of 100,000 people or so with a 5,000-6,000 person organization. And that's when he was saying it's real if you adopt it. The level of like innovation and productivity gains are real across every function. That's what, when I think about the question of like being on the other side of the trough, I think about what Bryce was telling us about where Moderna is at. And I think it was just a good case study to keep in mind that, if you embrace it and invite it to embrace AI and get curious and get literate and really try and infuse it in what you're doing, it can have this, profound effect. And you can be one of the companies that has a competitive advantage as this technology is speeding along and the capabilities are getting better and more fascinating. You want to be a company it's like surfing, right? You want to start paddling now, you don't want to be paddling as that wave. And unfortunately, the wave isn't going to be probably coming from behind you. It's going to be probably coming at you.
There you go.
Something as powerful as this,
So this says you got to start practicing and experimenting right away. And you can't outsource this to like 1 or 2 people. You got to plug it in. And we'll talk more about this in a minute, because I want to flip now into marketers. So after AI has whatever it's going to do, but we'll put it in the positive light, saved society, cured cancer, created a Star Trek-like intelligence intergalactic foundation. What kind of impact is it going to have on marketing and agencies?
I don't want to do all the talking, but what I'd say is, I think it's going to change the job of marketing. I mean, it's probably going to impact some jobs in marketing. It's going to impact jobs across every function, right?
Right.
And some functions are going to get impacted more than others. Like there are some functions, and I'm not trying to be whatever, Pollyannish or whatever the right word is about this. Like it's actually like, there's going to be disruption. And, frankly, Andy and I, we're probably not going to be necessary, as I nervously laugh about it, in a few years. Like there's a real, it's like every knowledge work is going to get disrupted. As a marketer, though, I think there's a real opportunity with AI, because this isn't something that like today you can just like spin up an AI marketer that's just going to, and trust me, Andy and I, we're working on a thing called Spock at our company. It's an AI marketing expert platform where we're trying to see if we can create like a great platform to help marketers. Yes, SPOK. And
rats, I thought it was.
That's okay, but yeah, that's the idea. Yeah. And the idea is it's not easy, right? You don't just go wave a magic wand yet and say, we don't have AGI yet. It's not just as simple as like, hey, do all this stuff for me. And so there's a real opportunity for marketers to get AI literate, to get in the flow and start experimenting, like we said, because I think what's going to happen is that personally, that the job of marketing is going to change. I don't think it's going to eliminate the need. I mean, companies are going to still need to do marketing. In fact, marketing might be more important than ever in the age of AI, with content everywhere. And,
Oh, we think so too, at least from our show. And we have one show called Will Your Next Best Customer Be an AI Bot? Because if the bots don't find you, customers aren't there running around doing search anymore.
So consumer behavior is going to, Andy, maybe we can talk about that. Like consumer behavior is going to change radically because of this, which means as a marketer, your job is more necessary than ever. But that doesn't mean your job's not going to change. I mean, think about my job as chief digital officer at Starbucks. Like there was no such thing as a chief digital officer when I started, right? And it wasn't like like, the disruption that came from digital meant that, people, it just changed the nature of the job. You had to sort of understand how to connect dots differently. And I think that's true now with AI and marketing. I do think it's about getting literate, getting proficient, getting your organization to at least embrace it on some level so that you can experiment with it and then figure out how to make your job better, easier. I've never met a marketer that has all the resources they need. So my guess is that the productivity enhancements that AI give are going to really be a blessing in certain cases. And yes, it will be disruptive. And so I think there's going to be either marketing leaders, marketing individual contributors, and agencies that are going to realize, like, I need to be in that Venn diagram circle that says,
Yeah.
I'm experimenting with it, I'm literate, and I'm sort of surfing with it. Not somebody who's sort of resisting it.
I mean, can I add to
Yeah,
that?
and if you can, also write in agencies.
Yeah, so I will. So to the point of, like, I'll call it the paradox or contradiction of Sam Altman's quote that 95% of marketing as we know it will be completed by AGI within 5 years' time, approximately. Which would make, whenever we say that, which would make everyone that's listening to this podcast nervous in their and fear driven about their job. So that's like, ugh, clench. On the counter to that, if you think about what AI enables, what we talked about just moments ago, it certainly enables a tremendous amount of content, like every aspect of the multimodal, the text, the audio, the visual. Now, an explosion of creativity allows content to go through the roof at very low cost. And to the point where synthetic influencers have been born and they're getting millions of followers. Synthetic bands are forming with synthetic music, and they're getting millions of followers. So those that, as you've got that content and explosion of creativity occurring, all of that sort of empowers the marketer, and it raises the need for being smarter and more strategic about marketing in the age of AI, because you need to stand out, even the need for it to stand out and be differentiated about. And oh, by the way, we're in the internet age where the switching costs, like TikTok,
Are almost
is
zero. Yeah.
they are zero. Like, if you're not making an impact within 5 seconds, oh, next channel, please. Like,
Right.
5 seconds, maybe. So the people that are able to deploy the tools and the creativity in ways, and oh, by the way, the example I used of TikTok and make it viral and making it agenda, the people that understand what's capable, it's much more of a composer. And I actually think that that drives a whole new realm of what it means to be a marketer. To Adam's point, the job of marketing will change. And I'll go further to say that, like, those that can deploy marketing to actually win the game of marketing for their company, which means increased personalization. Ultimately, the message that would resonate with you would be different than the message that would resonate with
Right.
me. And working with AI to have the right creativity deployed and the systems deployed in a way that it actually drives sales. And from all that, you actually have a lot of talk in the venture industry about the birth of, they extrapolate and go, oh, at some point there'll be an individual person that creates $1 billion company because
Right.
they just manage AI in a foot. I think we're a long way from that. However, I think you are going to see really powerful creative teams, and and I think it totally affect, like, the definition of what a marketing agency does. I think AI really puts a test on them, and they're going to need to transform what an agency does. Do I think people still need help in managing all this? Yeah, we talk to business leaders and marketers every day, and they're like, they go, oh, this is a neat tool for creating a blog post, but they really don't understand the tsunami of change that's coming. And they also don't understand, even if they do, they start to understand it A, it instills fear. B, it's like, where do I even begin? And I think there were real, like in our book, we try to answer that, real steps that you can be taking now, as a marketer to start understanding for yourself and start planning and instituting change into
I
your
want to talk
business
about that in a
processes.
minute, but I want to stay in this and say, look, okay, so if I'm out there and I want to get an AI vendor, or I want to convince my company to do it, how do I even go about evaluating vendors the right way and then telling non-believers or slower adopters how I'm measuring the impact, especially people that want AI, ROI on everything I do? Give me how do I even pick the right vendor and measure the impact if I'm bringing someone in?
Well, on the vendor side, we get that question a lot, and it's a really good question. I think it goes to there's a first step you need to take as a leader, whether you're a marketer or CEO or whatever. Like for organizations, you have to have some in your organization. There needs to be a center of AI literacy and proficiency. It doesn't have to be every single employee on day one. And I think this concept of like there's a bit of a crawl, walk, run that might be necessary, and different companies have different cultures. However, there needs to be a center of AI literacy and proficiency in your company. Now, you can call that an AI council, you can call it an AI champions team. It might be one person, it might be a 20-person AI council. The point is that group or person or persons has to invest at least a month or two right now, like getting AI literate and proficient. They don't have to become experts, but they need to be like listening to the right podcasts, taking a boot camp, doing a workshop, like understanding enough about the contours of AI and the trajectory of it, and staying abreast of it. So then for that reason, if you get to that place, which is not that hard, it takes about a month or two, it doesn't take, you don't have to hire Google's AI transformation expert to do it. It could be a part of somebody's job. It could be a part of the CMO's job. It could be a part of the CIO's job. It could be a group of people that are young and old and mixed and passionate about AI. Once they get to be to a baseline of AI proficiency, it's like riding a bike. All of a sudden you just do it. Meaning you're up to speed, you understand it, you have an intuition about it, you have a feeling for it. And then when you're talking to a potential vendor, because remember, you're talking about a potential vendor, Mike, every single piece of software that's used in the enterprise is going to have, if not already today.
Look, and every consulting company already is saying, we understand this. So
every single company, there's not a piece of enterprise software you're going to use in marketing or any function that doesn't have some AI widget or AI copilot or AI assistant or AI whatever. And so you're already having to assess that with all of your current vendors, let alone all these startups that are going to come at you with these wrapper apps that are going to say, hey, I've got this cool thing. You just need to be able to go, cool, let me take a look at it. And you assign it off to someone on the council or whatever, and you take a look at it. And you have to look at like, who's the back, who's behind them, what technology they're using, see a demo, and you'll be able to suss out like, all right, this.
But it is practice due diligence versus, I read a book and I can do this.
You can't fake that. But what I'm here to tell you is that it's not like a multi-million-dollar expenditure as a company to get to that point. But it requires a level of focus and a mindset shift. So in our book, we talk about what is the common trait of best practice in our case studies of companies that have been able to get to at least that first basic step. Is that they had executive sponsorship, they got some little bit of a center of AI literacy and proficiency going, and they effectively committed to doing that. And then at that point, they were able to sort of take that and run with it. And that includes assessing vendors. It includes figuring out what their AI use policy should be and how they should do experiments and how they should do road mapping and all that.
And what else is in that playbook that you would share with our listeners today? Because I like those three steps and the console, but like.
Yeah, I mean, Adam just talked about the
right.
AI council. I mean, step one is really is at the C-suite level, get proficient yourself, right? Like, so we have a whole, like, this is not the, AI is not the kind of technology that I think you want to outsource. You can't just hire an agency to go do it for you in the way that you could, say,
Right.
social media, etc. So start playing with the tools yourself and come up to speed. And the way we, what does that mean? That means get a license to Chat GPT, probably get a license for your team, to one of the large language models, and get the employees start moving on their own journey of productivity enhancement. And really what that means is getting through the first 10 hours of use, because we're finding that in general, even still, while it's been the fastest adopted technology in history, the level of use and understanding is low in the business world. And so get proficient, which means understand how to prompt, understand what the tool is capable of, generally get your mind around it. Get a council in place, and then the next thing is the council, as it proliferates, we basically go, okay, like choose one area where, one or two, but choose one area where you think you can have where it may help your business. And whether that be customer support or some marketing task. And every time, like, executives always ask us, oh, like, and people look too early for ROI. And I
Yeah.
think in general, if when people do the first step and do the 10 hours, if they're not seeing like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
saved
They
me
should have a
5
holy shit
hours.
moment. Yeah. They
If they
should
don't
have
have
their
an,
own holy
like,
shit moment.
yeah, you have every person that we've put and said, hey, do something for your do a job for your family, or your children, or for work. And they try to do that, and they turn to the large language. I'm just using Chat GPT because it's the
Yeah.
predominant one, but there
Right.
are others. Claude is fantastic, and now Google is quickly on the rise with Gemini. Choose one, we don't care which one, and start to do a job that you want to do. If you don't, everybody has an aha moment as they're doing it. Whoa, look at that response. And they also realize some of the limitations. As you do that, we say, okay, now choose an area in your business where you can actually have a productivity win, and don't look for ROI too early in that process. And the main reason is like, you have to give people the opportunity to experiment, and it takes a little bit of time, but the ROI is so clearly there. I mean, I think that's going back to earlier in our conversation when Bruce from Moderna said, look, I'm on the other side of the trial, looking back at the people who are going, is this hyped or overhyped? Like, looking back, going like, what are you waiting for? Because they're seeing 5x kind of productivity gains. It's insane not in all areas, and not without mess, and not without failure, but it's incredibly the ROI is so intuitive. It's like, you're paying $20 a month per user, and you're getting thousands of dollars worth of productivity gains.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
an
we talked
IQ
about
My
test. It's
holy
an
shit
IQ
moment
test.
was my holy shit moment was when I had to design a picture like that I wanted to make. I want to send a funny picture to a friend, and it could do just about anything in seconds. And I thought this would have taken any good creative team, it would have taken a day. And
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was like, holy shit. And I don't want to let the ROI point go, because you both said something really interesting. It's kind of like trying to calculate the ROI of electricity. And I want you guys to talk about that a little more, because I think the Moderna thing is leading to that. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
basically saying, don't be crazy stupid about this thing.
Yeah, we actually got that quote from Bryce at Moderna when he said
Totally.
that.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
said,
that's not our full quote to Bryce.
All
yeah,
right. Well,
to that point, let's talk about ROI. And Andy's right. Like, people are too quick to. So it's funny with the word ROI, because first of all, it doesn't cost you very much to get proficient and to use the actual tools. So in the strictest sense of the word ROI, it's funny because you're talking about investing, a portion of some people's time to get up to speed on one of the most important, if not the most important technologies that are coming into the world and spending $25 a month on some enterprise level thing. And if you use it right, you're probably already going to see, and there's studies that have proven this, if you use it right, you're going to see, call it 20+% productivity gains across every function that's using it right. So for starters, the ROI on that as a strict matter of ROI is astronomically high. But that's not even like, that's funny. That is like talking about the ROI of electricity or computers, because to Bryce's point, because we're not, when what we're talking about, that's just talking about what you just talked about, making a picture faster.
Yeah.
Not that you can't make a picture right now. It's just that you'd have to, the tools and the people and the time. What we're talking about, when Andy and I are talking to our case, we're learning the case studies that we have seen, the 20% to 40% productivity gains that could lead to 10 to 15% EBITDA improvements across an organization, that's actually kind of becoming kind of table stakes to the way we think about ROI. In the book, we talk about a case study of a company called Suzy that actually the CEO got proficient himself, understood, got literate, and right away was like, oh, I can use Chat GPT, in this case, it was Chat GPT, to create an unlock in my sales process. So you start to realize it's not just about productivity, it's about either higher quality output or some unlock of something that was just beyond your reach. And so like that's when things get really wild, because in that case study, for example, what he did, and we talked about this in the book, is he actually realized he had all this data. He said, I have all this data. And what he was referring to is that I think he used a sales software program called Gong, I think, and it was transcribing and categorizing every single sales and account management call. His team used Slack, right? So he had all these transcripts, and he was like, wait a minute, I could feed those into, I could sort of jerry rig using Zapier, like feed those into to ChatGPT and into a program that basically I can take my own domain knowledge of what's a good sales call, what's a bad sales call, what's a risk for churn, what's a high propensity to close. He had this in his own mind because he's built this sales organization over years, and he was able to take his own domain knowledge, combine it with the data he had with the transcripts and ChatGPT, and he came up with a sales agent. It's not really, kind of sales bot that would basically take all the calls real time that his sales and account management team was having and create a Slack or Teams or whatever based alert system that would allow him to have a much better rate of close and a much better rate of preventing churn. And he did so without having to like fire a bunch of people or hire a bunch of people. He basically, I think he said he tripled, I think in the book he said, right, Andy, he said he tripled his sales. He tripled his sales without having to add any salespeople, or any account reps, whatever. So it's an example of, you think about the ROI in terms of productivity lift, but a key part for your audience to think about that we've learned is that every company has their own domain knowledge, and that's something that ChatGPT doesn't have as well as you do. So you got to combine that. If you get AI literate and you do the steps we're talking about, you find that you can combine your domain knowledge expertise of your company with the AI, with the data, right? And that's how you get these unlocks, and that's where the real ROI magic comes from. And that's so there's both this sort of always on productivity lift and profit improvement and throughput improvement, and then there's these breakthroughs that only you'll be able to come out with. And we talked to in our book, our last chapter was with Ethan Mollick, the Wharton professor who's sort of a guru in this space, and he wrote a book called Co-Intelligence. He's incredible follow. He has a blog, he has a book. He's kind of the guy to listen to in a lot of these cases in terms of applied AI for ROI across a number of industries. And we asked him to read our book, and the chapter was, Professor, kind of critique our book. Tell us where we got it right, where we got it wrong. And as Andy likes to say, he, as a good professor did, he sort of chastised us and said, yeah, your playbook is great for today, but like, it's not good enough. You should be pushing your clients harder, pushing your readers harder to experiment, because They only the client, only the marketer at a company really knows their company and can sort of take that, and they should be thinking about all they could get. If they can take their AI proficiency, they're the key to these unlocks, which is where the real ROI is going to happen.
So I think that is a great way to finish this and get to our traditional last question, because we clearly we could talk to both of you for a long time, but we're at time. And
Mike, we're just getting warmed up.
I know. Well, look, we we'll have you back on the show, even though this even this is a two-parter, but we always finish with this last question. It's a two-part question. Funny story you can tell on the air and or practical advice we haven't discussed yet. You could take one or both of these, but you must take at least one.
You prepped us and gave us warning you were going to ask those questions.
We did.
Adam, did you prepare? Because I sure as hell didn't.
We're like,
what are the two questions again, Mike? Give it to us again.
Funniest story you can tell on the air, or practical advice to our listeners we haven't talked about yet.
Funniest story that you can tell on the air. I don't know.
I'm sure you're dying to tell the funny story.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of practical advice, but
I'll take the practical advice. You tell the funny story.
All right, there we go.
This is not. It's not that funny, but yesterday, I got dressed up for work. I tend to, as Adam points out, I tend to like button down shirts, and I pulled from my closet a silk shirt that I've had a little while. And it's a little dated, but in its datingness, because I'm a little dated, in its datingness, it's got this very nice silk feel. So like I've got the good 1970s look going on.
Yeah, John
and I go to work.
Nothing on you.
Yeah, with nothing. And I go to work and I spend all day, and then Thursday happens to be poker night for me. So I played poker last night, and as I arrived, I had my coat on. As I arrived, people were like, "Oh, Andy, like looking good. Like, look at that shirt." Like I got a couple of compliments about my shirt. I take my coat off, I sit down, and like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes after being seated at the poker table, the guy next to me says, "Hey man, you're like," he tickles my right shoulder, puts his finger in, and it's like, "You got a little bit of rip." And my entire seam of my shirt was gaping open at the poker table. And I had played for 20 minutes and not been totally unaware. And I think I had caught the shirt as I, at some point during the day, I had caught the shirt and ripped the hell out of it. And that's my funny story.
A lot of people are probably happy that shirt's going away. So
as a matter of fact, I stood up from the poker table. I had change of clothes in the car, and I tossed the shirt into the rubbish. Sorry I couldn't deliver a funny story, but that's what I've got.
That's right. Adam, last to you, practical advice we haven't talked about yet for our listeners.
I feel like there's the biggest piece of practical advice that we haven't talked about is it's probably has to do with
read our book.
Yeah. I was actually going to say, like, my brain is going to, like, there's a notion of being curious about these technologies and not letting the fear and feeling like you're behind, like, stop you. And I'll be honest with you, like, I'll give my story in relating to the practical advice. Is yesterday I was giving a presentation on behalf of our company to a bunch of public school superintendents and principals about what does AI mean. And I don't know anything about education. So I literally built a presentation that was saying, look, I'm going to tell you what I think I would be doing if I was an AI first school. And I think the practical advice that I want to give is that as I was giving this talk, I wasn't sure as I walked in, I'll be vulnerable here. Like, I'm like, I wonder if this is like useful information anymore. Like Andy and I spent all this time studying this stuff and getting up to speed and being in the jet stream. And I walked in thinking, I wonder, like, what if everyone like rolls their eyes and goes, yeah, we know
Yeah.
all that already, right? So I put it aside and I wound myself up and I gave my best attempt at a educational and inspiring and insightful presentation. And when I got done, and I didn't have to wait till I got done. You could just see from the reaction in the room that no, the room didn't know any of this stuff on some level. And I think the practical advice is there's a huge gap. We've sort of talked around this, but I just want to say it directly. There is a huge gap between where 95% of marketers and companies are today and where the not even experts, just people like me and Andy who have, and other, folks at companies who have really tried to really get into this and become AI literate proficient. And my advice is don't it doesn't, you can get there. You can get there in like a month. And there's a way to do it. And I'm just saying the practical advice is like, listen to Paul Reitzer's podcast, right? Read our book.
Be curious.
Yeah, be
Curious.
curious and
Get
realize
involved. Yeah.
it's not too late. There are people, not just Andy and I, there are people that can synthesize it for you. In fact, the AI can do it for you. You could go to Chat GPT and say, I want you to be my Gen AI tutor, and spend 10 minutes a day having Chat GPT in advanced voice mode while you're driving around, tutor you on AI. That's my advice, is just get started and realize that you probably have a bigger gap than you realize, and it's easier to close that gap than you think.
I think that is a great way to end the show. So thank you, Adam and Andy, and thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential. Look for more of our shows on the I Hear Everything Network, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, which include Your Best Customer is an AI Bot. Welcome to the new frontier. The rise and fall of Peloton is seen through the eyes of CLTV. Using AI for anticipation versus reaction, and is AI an extinction event for agencies? Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential. Marketers have been working on personalization since the dawn of the internet, and actually even earlier than that. Now with AI, you can deliver ads made for each of your customers. Publicis Sapient is committed to faster, better personalization and is proud to introduce Slingshot and Bodhi AI. Now, these AI platforms are designed to customize every key touch point and reduce creative timelines from weeks to days. With Publicis Sapient, marketing isn't just fast, it's personal. Smarter marketing, happier teams, wow-worthy customer moments. Upgrade your marketing at publicissapient.com.